Knowledge is what is. Imagination is what can be. Today, I'm going to share with you how you can use your imagination to benefit you. Hello, hello, hello. If you are under the sound of my voice, you are listening to the Manifest on Purpose show. I am Kimbaley, and it is such an honor and a pleasure to be your host today. Thank you so much for dropping by, sharing your time and energy with me today. Thank you for all of those you invite, and thank you for subscribing here and on the website at Kimbaley, KIMBALEY.com. The God in me loves the God in you. Today, we're going to talk about your imagination just a bit, and I'm going to use mine first. But before we even get into that, let's hear our Astro-Numerology forecast for today, courtesy of Astro-Numerologist LLoyd Strayhorn and the Star 8 mobile numerology app. It is Monday, July the 1st. The sun is in Cancer. The moon is in Taurus. It's a 6 universal month, a 7 universal week, and a 7 universal day. It's best to start this first day of the new month off on a note of quiet and reflection. True, that may not sound that exciting at first. However, it will give you an opportunity to ask yourself the kinds of questions you may have been seeking, but answered now with greater clarity and understanding. It'll be later in the week that promises to be more in lockstep with your liking. Cancer, Pisces, and those born on the 2nd, 7th, 11th, 16th, 20th, 25th, and 29th appear to be the first ones out of the gate ahead of the rest. Once again, that is your Astro-Numerology forecast for today, courtesy of Astro-Numerologist LLoyd Strayhorn and the Star 8 app. You can get your forecast every day by going to www.astar8.com. You can download it there on Google Play or on the App Store. You can also download it on Linktree/numbers and you. How will you plan for this new month, the month of July? And not only that, what can you expect for the month of July? If you're still asking yourself these questions, it's because you need the Astro-Numerology forecast for the year. This forecast will guide you through the next year of your life, and it will go through each month of the year to let you know how you should plan and what you can expect. You can also get your personal numerology report to learn more about yourself, your characteristics, and your special abilities. You can get your compatibility report to find out what type of relationships you're in your life. You can also get all of these reports for your business. Just go to Kimbaley, KIMBALEY.com and get your special reports for you today. Now, let's get back to the show. I've always loved to hear a good story, and the one that Stan told was no different. There's no way in the world that anyone had the guts to tell Stan that the stories he told us, nobody believed. We moved into the city where everything was different, and one of the first people we met in that city was a character. Well, A guy called Stan. Stan was always hanging around our place because he had a thing for my godmother. She put up with his lively yet eccentric behavior sometimes, and when it got to be a bit too much, she'd make him leave. Stan was a quirky fella. His behavior was bizarre to say the least, but sometimes he would go off the deep end. That's when my godmother would make him leave. There were times that this was more likely to happen. It was usually during what we call story time. That's when Stan would tell us about Joe. Joe was his pet dinosaur. Believe it or not, Joe had wings. And according to Stan, he rides on Joe sometimes. He would say that he would fly with Joe over the murky swamps of the southeast part of the United States, saving those that he said needed help. Even as children, we still could not take Stan seriously. It just seemed like a bit of a fable. But as I said, we dare not told him because we did not have the guts to tell him that we did not believe his story. But something kind of strange happened at one point. See, these stories about Joe kind of were like series because he would tell us about each experience he had with Joe. And one time he even included my family. Nobody ever explained to Stan where we moved from. He did not know the area at all, but in this next story he told us, he got pretty close to the details. He even told us about a tragedy that happened across the street from where we were living before we moved to the city. He told us what he did during that tragedy helped save us across the street. And even as I say it now, it sounds pretty weird. But I'm telling you, something like that really did happen where we were living at before we moved to the city. If nothing else, what this really did was made us stop teasing Stan so bad about his stories and kind of listen to some of the stories he told in seriousness. Along with that, we found out that Stan was having a problem with his living arrangements. Things were kind of rough for him at the time. But he had delight in telling this story to different people, children, adults, it didn't matter. No matter where Stan went, Stan told his story. No matter how many people teased him, he never gave up on his imagination. So many people counted Stan out. Come on. He was an adult telling stories that he believed and no one else believed. Before I go any further, I want to ask this question because I want to know if there are other people that have experienced this as well. Have you ever experienced a time where you shared your vision with someone and they couldn't quite get it during that time? This can have two different effects on you. Number one effect is you can allow the disbeliefs of others to discourage you, making you give up on that vision altogether. Or some people, like Stan, will continue to share that vision because they feel that they are serving a purpose with that vision and that vision is going to come into fruition someday. That's exactly what happened to Stan. He kept telling his story and telling his story, and people continued to look at him with the side eye. No one had the guts to tell him, I don't believe your story. They just listened to him politely. As a result, Stan walked into the house one day with some excellent news. Stan let us know that someone had offered to pay him big bucks to tell the same story that people side eye him about. Using his imagination for all of those years landed him enough to take care of himself. I'm sure he never knew that his imagination would take him so far. I know we didn't. I know it may sound bad that anybody would ever tease someone for using their imagination and creativity, which is what Stan was doing. But I understand completely. We learn a lot of things in our formative years. And by the time we were 7 years old, we were great at using our imagination. Most people can think back as a child and remember some of those times where they utilized their imagination, especially during playtime. However, once a child reaches a certain age, unfortunately, all of those things are put to an end. It is then expressed to them in some form or fashion, whether it is in school, the adults in their home, or what's going on in their environment, that an overactive imagination is not healthy. Therefore, children are encouraged not to use their imagination as much. That is when the child begins to suppress the imagination. And the older the child gets, the more suppressed the imagination gets. But we have to ask ourselves the question, why were we given an imagination if it's not there for us to use? The fact of the matter is, whether you believe it or not, we all have an imagination. And even though you may think that you have suppressed your imagination, you are always using your imagination. Whenever you think of something, whenever you express something, you see it in a picture first. You see the vision first. When you think about a positive outcome to a situation, you are imagining for the best to happen. And on the same note, whenever you are worrying about something and thinking about the most negative thing that can happen, you are creating that negativity into your life. It is what I said a couple of conversations back. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Whatever you see in your mind is what you create in your reality. So, the first thing that you need to know is to never neglect your imagination. This is a time for you to say, okay, imagination, you've always been here. And although there are many years that I may have neglected you, now I'm going to stop neglecting you and I'm going to pay attention to the pictures that I create in my mind. I'm going to imagine on purpose. Sometimes the mind can become so busy with the day to day that you don't take time to tap into your own imagination. When your mind feels overwhelmed, this is the best time to use your imagination. I was sharing with you moments earlier about how a lot of people feel like imagination is strictly for children. The truth about it is, a lot of times that children are best at it. And the reason why is that most children, especially before the age of 7 years old, are at peace and they know no limits. They don't have all of the things that an adult person has on their mind to keep their mind distracted. So it is easier for them to imagine, but it does not mean that imagination should be just left for the children. Imagination is very powerful. It is actually one of my favorite manifestation techniques because it does fall under the creative visualization category, and it is just so simple. All it is about is creating the image in your mind that you would like to create in your future. Most people that go on to do great things, it's because they have great visions, great goals, great things that they are trying to achieve. The only thing they are doing that I want to encourage you to do is they're visualizing what they want as if it has already happened right now. The unlimited possibilities in your life lies right there in your imagination. Here are a few tips of some things that you can do to help you use your imagination on purpose. The very first thing is you have to pull up the weeds. When I say pull up the weeds, I'm talking about you're in your subconscious mind and you're pulling out all of those things that you are envisioning in your life that are negative. You're figuring out what those things are and you're changing your beliefs around those things. And the way you're changing your beliefs is by changing your perspective of the experience that caused the belief. We talked about that in the last story. So once you get into that subconscious and you start changing your beliefs, we're going to move right on to the next stage. And the reason why that stage is so important is because if there are weeds in your subconscious garden, then those weeds will choke up the new seeds that you plant. The very next thing is that you need to know what you want. You can't go to a restaurant and say you don't know what you want because you just may not get fed. So, in this case, it is very important for you to know exactly what it is that you want. How can you achieve something if you don't know what that thing is? So, make sure that you go back throughout these stories and find some intention setting stories so that you can brush up on setting intentions, because this is the time in the imagination process that it is very important. In order to create a picture, you have to know what you want in that picture. What do you want to manifest in the future? One thing that I've learned about manifestation is that many people get stuck in the very beginning of the manifestation process. So, what I say is instead of starting at the beginning, start at the end. And going to the end is what this next step is all about. Go to the end of the process of manifestation. What are the results? What do you see happening to you when you achieve your goal? This looks like if you're trying to rise to the top of your company, instead of painting the picture of everything that it's going to take for you to get there, paint the picture of you already receiving honors in that position. For example, paint the picture of how happy and excited you would be when that letter of promotion comes to you. What you're really doing is creating a story, a visual story for your mind to convince your mind that this is already happening. We talked about creating your story in the last story that I told. The one thing that's important about the mind is to know that whether it's really happening or you paint a vivid picture, the mind sees it all as reality. So continue to see the end result, what the effects are of you achieving the goal that you would like to achieve. And that is going to give you passion and motivation to push you towards achieving that goal. That will also raise your vibrations. and it will change your energy so that you are aligning with the things that you've set as your goal or your intention. While you're painting this image in your mind, be sure to include all five of your senses. You want this to feel real enough to convince the subconscious mind that this is real to you. And in the final step, I want to say repetition, repetition, repetition. No matter what comes up in life, whatever other images come up in your life, make sure that you quickly grab these images and hold on to these images. Let these things replay in your mind so that you can create this in your actual reality. There are so many things that you can do with the imagination. Here's just a few ways that I use my imagination. When I practice speeches, I don't write the speech out and just read over the speech. I practice by creating a movie in my mind of the speech. And whenever it's time for me to give the speech, it's easy because I can just recall that memory that I painted in my mind. There are also certain skills that I have learned by using the imagination. I also use my imagination to come up with innovative ideas. I use it to lift my moods when I need to raise my vibration. I use it to manifest things, of course, that I am achieving in my life. And I also use it here on the Manifest on Purpose show. By sharing these stories with you, I hope that I can help inspire you to become the creator of your life and to be able to manifest on purpose. And during this conversation, to imagine on purpose or use your imagination to purposely attract those things in your life that you've been longing to have. Everybody thought Stan was a joke, all because he used his imagination to make life more lively for him. But the joke is on them. Because Stan was using his imagination, it created a path to help make things better for his life. It's embarrassing how imagination has been pushed off to the side and labeled as mere child's play. It's no child's play at all. In fact, by nature, we all imagine every day, whether we're conscious of it or not. But just like manifestation, you have to do it on purpose. Your imagination is the mental image that is in your mind whenever you think of something, whenever you say something, whenever you perceive something. Your imagination creates your reality, whether it's a negative image that you have painted in your mind, or if it's a positive image that you have created in your mind. What the imagination really is the field of infinite possibilities. And the cool thing about the imagination in your mind is that your mind can't tell whether you're really looking at something or if it's a vivid imagination. Today, I want to empower you to do what Stan did. No, I do not want you to go around telling stories about a dinosaur named Joe. But I do want you to capitalize on your imagination. And you can do that by first and foremost knowing what it is that you want. Once you develop an idea of what you want, go to the end result to create a video, a vivid image that includes all of your senses in order to make a suggestion to your subconscious mind. I also want you to do this in repetition. Don't just think about this one time. Make sure that you're thinking about it in the present tense. Perhaps you're working towards a degree. Imagine yourself at your graduation and your name being called as you walk across the stage to receive your degree. All of these things through your imagination will help you create alignment with what it is that you want to achieve, and it will bring these things into your energy field so that you can grab that opportunity. Creative visualization and imagination. It gets no better than that. It's very simple and straightforward, and it's innate to all of us. In fact, as I've said, it's something that you already do. All you have to do is develop a purpose and align with that purpose to create the image that you would like to step into in the future. Albert Einstein said that insanity is doing the same thing over again, expecting different results. Jim Quick says, knowledge is what is, imagination is what can be. Instead of dwelling on what has been, dwell on what can be. Use your imagination. I love you to life. This is how you manifest on purpose.